I met the woman who changed my whole family's story standing in aisle 3 between the boxed potatoes and the canned green beans. Back then, I thought she was just the grocery clerk with the bad name tag and the good eyeliner. Her badge said Marla, but the R was half scratched off, so it looked more like Mala. And I remember thinking, that seemed unfair. He had one of those faces that looks older and younger at the same time, laugh lines, tired eyes, a ponytail that said she'd given up on impressing anybody, but still cared enough to check the mirror. I was in my usual place, pushing a buggy I didn't really need, buying more food than one woman should, trying not to think too hard about why my house felt emptier than my pantry. It was about a year after my husband died, and I'd learned the hard way that grief doesn't respect store hours. It'll knock you flat in the produce section if it feels like it. All it takes is seeing his favorite cereal or catching a whiff of Old Spice from some stranger. That day, I was mostly holding it together. I had my list. I had my coupons. I had my I'm fine face on. Then I got to the checkout. There was a girl in front of me with a baby on her hip and a stack of store-brand diapers and formula in her cart, counting crumpled bills with the kind of concentration you only see in church or at the gas pump. Behind me, a man in a work shirt paced, groceries in one hand, his phone in the other, letting somebody know he'd be just a minute, his voice saying he knew that was a lie. And there in the middle on lane 4 was Marla. "Hey, Miss June," she said when she saw me, like I was somebody worth noticing. "You got your coupons today," she remembered. I'd forgotten. "Oh Lord," I said, patting my purse. "I think they're buried alive in here along with last week's receipts and a handful of butterscotch wrappers." She laughed. "Take your time," she said. "Ain't nobody here in that much of a hurry, even if they think they are." The man behind me snorted, but he didn't argue. I dug out the coupon envelope, handed it over like it was a prized document. She flipped through, fingers quick. "You're buying these same soup mixes you always get," she said, scanning. "You mackin' your chicken and rice." I squinted at her. "How on earth you remember that?" I asked. She shrugged. "I remember what feeds people," she said simply. "You brought some to your neighbor when her mama died, remember? You were in here buying all the ingredients and apologizing to me 'cause you thought you looked a mess." I did remember. I also remembered the way she'd slipped a pack of dinner rolls into my bag and muttered, "Manager special," when we both knew the little sticker wasn't on that pack. That's when I first realized she didn't just scan items. She scanned people. She saw more than most. At the time, I thought that just meant she was observant, the kind of woman who could tell which customer was gonna hold up the line and which one needed an extra "Hey, how are you?" more than she needed the sale total. I didn't know, standing there with my coupons and my grief, that one day she'd know more about my children than I did, more about my marriage than I wanted to admit, more about the secret that had been sitting on the top shelf of our family story, like an unmarked can nobody wanted to open. I certainly didn't know she'd be the one to put a crack in it. All I knew then was that she bagged my groceries like she was building a puzzle, heavy cans at the bottom, bread on top, eggs in the middle like a fragile thought, and that when she handed me the last bag, she leaned in just a hair and said, low enough that only I could hear, "You look tired around the eyes, Miss June. You drinkin' enough water, grief'll dry you out." I stared at her. "Nobody told me that," I said. She smiled. "I see it all," she said, tapping her temple. "Who's fightin', who's fallin' apart, who's holding on. I wish water fixed more than it does, but it's a start." That was my first real conversation with Marla. It was not my last. If you want to know what's going on in a small town, you don't go to City Hall. You go to the grocery store. We got 2 in my town, the big chain over by the highway, and the smaller, older one right in the middle of the neighborhoods, where the floors squeak, and the manager still knows whose granddaddy used to work there. I don't go to the big one unless I have to. It's too bright, too loud, too full of people looking at their phones and not each other. I go to Parker's Market. The sign out front still says Parker's, even though Mr. Parker died 10 years ago and his son sold the place to a regional chain. He changed the uniforms, slapped their logo on the receipt, but the bones of the place stayed the same. The same bell rings when you walk in. The same fluorescent light flickers over the deli case. The same old man sticks quarters in the gumball machine for his great-grandkids. And behind those registers, day in and day out, is the same 30-something clerk with black mascara and a name badge that never quite sits straight. I started noticing her more once I was on my own. When Earl was alive, he did most of the heavy lifting on grocery day. He liked pushing the cart, grabbing samples, talking to people. I liked macking the list and complaining about how he never followed it. After he died, I had to go by myself. I thought it'd just be about learning where the pickles were. I didn't realize it'd be about learning where I was. The grocery clerks, my friend Leela likes to say, are the unofficial therapists of the suburbs. She's not wrong. They watch us buy our food, which means they watch us live our lives. They see the frozen dinners in the cart when the marriage is fallen apart and nobody's cooking. They see the baby food show up before the baby shower invitations go out. They see the wine bottles increase when the job stress does. They see the red meat phase right after the doctor's warning, and the begrudging switch to chicken later. Most of them just bag and ring and forget. Or maybe they remember a little, enough for some gossip in the break room. But some are talking notes in their hearts. Marla was one of those. Over the next year, I fell into a rhythm. Tuesday mornings, 10 a.m., I'd be at Parker's with my list and my cart and my coupons, and Marla would be at lane 4, hair up in some variation of a ponytail or messy bun, rings on 3 fingers, little hoop earrings catching the light. She always had a different color nail polish, sometimes chipped, sometimes fresh, sometimes a dramatic dark red I envied and knew I couldn't pull off. She'd scan my things and ask about my week, not in the fake "how are you" way people do when they're really only asking to be polite. She'd de-ask specifics. "How's your son?" she'd say. "He's still fighting with the lawyer about your house." I'd blink. "I told you that," I asked once. She shrugged. "You did," she said. "And your daughter did when she came through my line that one time. Your sister mentioned it when she was buying ice cream and saying some words I won't repeat." She grinned. "And your son's friend said something about estate stuff in line 6 while he was buying pizza rolls last month," she added. "I connect the dots." I stared at her. "You listen too much," I said. "Somebody gotta," she said. "Aisle 3 is where people forget I have ears." She wasn't wrong. I can't count the number of times I've heard entire relationship fights in the cereal aisle. "Honey," I said, "we can't afford name brand." "Well," I said, "you can't afford that boat, but there it is." Not to mention the parenting arguments, the budget talks, the barely whispered confessions between 2 women leaning over the cart like it's an altar. She saw it all. More importantly, she remembered. She remembered when Mrs. Jenkins's cart went from 2 gallons of milk and 3 cereal boxes down to 1 and 1, then back up to 3 when the grandkids moved in. She remembered when the young couple from Maple Street went from a 12-pack of beer and frozen pizzas to prenatal vitamins and organic spinach overnight. She remembered when my cart, which had always had 2 of everything, suddenly had 1. "You switched to half loaves of bread," she said to me once, about 6 months after Earl died. "That's rough. Half doesn't get stale so fast," I said. She nodded, bagging. "Neither do you," she said. I didn't know whether to hug her or cry or ask what exactly she thought was drying out in me. I settled for saying, "You talk like you're 60. "I feel like I am some days," she said. "I got 400 people's grocery histories in my head." "That ages you." She said it like a joke, but there was something serious behind it. I didn't understand how serious until my family hit a wall so hard that the only person who saw it coming was the girl with the beepin scanner. The slow build to that wall started where a lot of my trouble seems to start, with my son. Don't get me wrong, I love that boy. I carried him, birthed him, spoon-fed him, prayed over him when he was sick, laid him out of at least one dumb decision and several smaller ones. But he and I have always butted heads like two goats on the same rock. He wants control. I want peace. He thinks control leads to peace. I know better. After Earl died, that part of him got louder. He got scared. I see that now. Back then, all I saw was pushy. He wanted to help. He wanted to make sure things are in order. He wanted to protect you, Mama, from getting taken advantage of. What it felt like from my side was him trying to step into his daddy's shoes and shoving me aside in the process. We'd already had the mess with the deed. We'd already sat in the lawyer's office with my husband's empty chair between us, fighting over signatures and fairness and grief and power in ways that had nothing to do with the actual paperwork. We'd already said words we couldn't quite take back. We were better some by the time I met Marla proper. Apologies had been exchanged, or at least apology-adjacent sentences, but the crack was there. We pretended it was. Marla didn't. She saw it in the way my son started buying his own groceries at Parker's instead of letting me stock his pantry like I had since his divorce. She saw it in the way we never came in together. She saw it in the way his cart was full of frozen dinners and microwavable meals until one day, out of nowhere, it contained a small bag of brown rice, some chicken breasts, and a printout recipe half crumpled in the child's seat. She saw me standing in aisle 7 staring at the pasta, phone in my hand, thumb hovering over his number, then putting it back in my purse without calling. She watched us move around each other in that store like magnets turned the wrong way. And because she saw it, she was the only one who wasn't surprised when it finally blew up. It happened on a Thursday night. I remember because that's the day the new circular comes out, and I had mine folded on the table, planning my week around what was on sale like I always do. I'd made a pot of vegetable soup. The house smelled like onions and tomatoes and thyme. My daughter Lee was coming over with her kids. My son David texted that he might drop by if I'm not too tired. That man is always not too something. Too tired, too busy, too broke. He showed up anyway, halfway through supper, letting himself in with his key like he still lived there. I hugged him, glad in spite of myself. We sat at the table, bowls in front of us, talking about nothing. Blah blah weather, blah blah gas prices, blah blah the pastor's new sermon series on legacy. I rolled my eyes at that one. Legacy is what people talk about when they're avoiding saying death, I muttered. David snorted. Or regret, he said. The room got quieter after that. He changed the subject, asking about the grandkids' school. I thought maybe we'd get through dinner without stepping on landmines. Then David cleared his throat. Hey, Mama, he said, did you ever call the financial advisor I told you about? The one who can help you streamline things. I put my spoon down. We've talked about this, I said. I got my systems. They may not be modern, but they work. He frowned. Your systems are you and a notebook and a kitchen drawer, he said. You need somebody professional in your corner. I had somebody professional, I said. He died in the Piggly Wiggly parking lot, remember? That was ugly. I knew it as soon as it left my mouth. His face shut down. I'm just trying to help, he said, his voice tighter. You're not gonna be around forever. If the house and the accounts aren't organized, it's gonna be chaos when I die, I snapped. Go ahead, say it. You said it in the lawyer's office. Might as well repeat yourself here between the salt and pepper. He rubbed his forehead. I didn't say it like that, he muttered. You didn't have to, I said. I heard it anyway. Lee's eyes flicked between us, worried. Mama, David, she said. Maybe no, let him talk. I cut in. I want to hear how efficient he wants my death to be. He threw his spoon down, soup splashing. That's not fair, he said. You twist everything I say. My voice went cold, the way it does when I'm hurt more than I'm angry. You want to talk about fair? I asked. Fair is not sitting in a chair with your wife in a lawyer's office discussing your mama like she's a car that's about to run out of gas. Fair is not fighting over a house I scrubbed and painted and paid for with years of my life while your daddy was at work. Fair is not you acting Like you're the only one who cares what happens when I'm gone. Lee stood up. I'm gonna take the kids to the living room, she said softly. Y'all do what you need to do, but don't make me pick sides. We watched her go, both of us breathing hard. David ran his hand through his hair, frustrated. You always think the worst of me, he said. Always. I'm trying to make sure we don't end up like the Jenkinses, fighting in probate court for years. I'm trying to protect you. I didn't ask you to, I said. I asked you to trust me. To trust that I know what I'm doing with my own life. To trust that your daddy didn't raise a fool. And you couldn't do that. You still can't. He shook his head. You don't see how stubborn you are, he said. You won't let anybody in. You won't let anybody help. You act like we're the enemy instead of the people who are gonna be left picking up the pieces. I stood up too. The enemy, I said, my voice low. You know who's been my enemy lately, David? Paperwork. Insurance forms. Grief. That empty chair. Not you. I wanted you on my side. Instead, you came at me with spreadsheets and efficient solutions. You talked to me like a case, not a mama, he flinched. You're twisting my words again, he said. Maybe, I said. Or maybe I'm hearing what you don't want to say. That you're scared. That you don't trust me. That you're more worried about chaos than you are about what's left of my peace. We stared at each other. Years of love sat between us at that table. So did years of miscommunication. Then he said the sentence that broke something. If you would just sign things the way I tell you to, he said, you wouldn't have to worry about any of this. Silence. I felt my hands go cold. Get out, I said. He blinked. What? He asked. Get out, I repeated. Get out of my house before I say something I can't unsay. He opened his mouth. Mama, go, I said. You want to be the man of your own house. Go to it. This one is mine. You don't talk to me like that in it. His face went through shock, then anger, then something like hurt. Fine, he said. You don't want my help, you won't get it. Don't call me when things fall apart. He grabbed his keys and stormed out. The door slammed. The windows rattled, so did my heart. Lee came back in, eyes red. You okay? She asked. No, I said. But I meant it, she nodded. He's scared, she said. I know, I said. So am I, but fear ain't a free pass to talk to me like I'm senile. She hugged me. We did dishes in silence. I didn't sleep much that night. The next morning, my list was shorter than usual. No extra snacks, just in case David stops by. Just my basics. Bread, coffee, milk, onions, and a whole lot of pride. I almost skipped the grocery store. Almost. But coffee doesn't replenish itself, and I was out. So I went to Parker's. And that's where Marla came in. She saw me before I saw her. Hey, miss, she began, then stopped when she got a good look at my face. Oh, she said softly. We having an extra strong coffee kind of day. I pulled my buggy in line at lane 4. Something like that, I said. She started ringing my items, slow and steady. She didn't ask the usual how's your son, or how's your daughter, or you mackin' soup questions. She just beeped and bagged and watched me out the corner of her eye. Finally, as she scanned my coffee, she said, You know I'm not just being nosy when I say I see a lot, right? I raised an eyebrow. I assumed you were, I said. She smiled, but it was small. You're not the only mama I've watched argue with her adult kids at the deli counter, she said. You're just the only one who buys this particular brand of medium roast and the same brand of tissues every time you've had a fight. I stared at the box of tissues on the belt. I'm very predictable, I said. She tilted her head. You are consistent, she corrected. There's a difference. The man behind me sighed loudly. She ignored him. I watched your son come in yesterday, she said, lowering her voice. Late, sweaty, looked like he'd been driven around mad. Bought a frozen pizza, a 6-pack of beer, and a tub of ice cream he told me he didn't need. My stomach clenched. He told you all that? I asked. He told the ice cream, she said. I just happened to be within earshot. I snorted in spite of myself. She slid my bread into a bag. He said something about I always mess it up, and she doesn't want my help, and I sound like my father, she continued. Which, to be fair, I don't know your husband, but I've heard enough wives gripe in aisle 2 to know that's not usually a compliment. I bristled a little. Earl was a good man, I said. He just didn't know how to talk about hard things. She held up her hand. I'm not saying he wasn't, she said. I'm just saying your boy is scared he's turning into a version of him he didn't like, and scared he's letting you down, and scared he's gonna watch you go through what he saw his grandmama go through. Men don't usually say, I'm scared into a Clerk scanner. They say she drives me crazy or I can't win. I translate. I looked at her more closely. How old are you? I asked. 31, she said, but I got the emotional mileage of about 62. That sounded about right. I'm mad at him, I said. I don't want to translate. I just want to be mad. You're allowed, she said. You're the mama. You earned that right. But can I tell you something I probably should? I hesitated. No, I said, but you're gonna anyway, she laughed. You're correct, she said. He reminds me of my brother, that's all. I frowned. How so? I asked. She rang up my onions. My brother thought he was savin' our mama, she said. From herself, from her bad choices, from the men she picked, from money problems. He made charts, he made plans, he called banks. She just heard judgment. He just heard chaos. They both dug in. They didn't talk for 3 years. Then she got sick. They lost a lot of time they can't get back. She slid my coffee toward me. Your boy wants to be the man his daddy can't be anymore, she said. He doesn't have the tools. You're a strong woman. That's good. It's also terrifying when you're trying to help and you feel like you're running into a brick wall. I braced my hands on the counter. Whose side are you on? I asked. She gave me a look. As far as I can tell, y'all are on the same side and don't know it, she said. I'm on the side of you not regretting something later because you won a point right now. I hated that she was macking sense. I hated even more that she could see that under my anger was something much softer. Fear that maybe David was right, and I wasn't as in control as I pretended. Did your mama ever forgive your brother? I asked. She smiled sadly. She did, she said. Right before she died, they made up. But it wasn't the same. Too much unsaid for too long. He still carries around a lot of if I just shut up that one day. She handed me my receipt. I can't tell you what to do, she said. I can't tell you he's not being a butthead, 'cause he kind of is. But I can tell you this. He looked like a little boy buying that pizza last night. And you looked like a little girl buying these tissues today. Maybe y'all could stand to remember that neither of you is just the roles you're playing in this fight. I swallowed around the lump in my throat. The man behind me shifted, impatient. I am so sorry, I said automatically, moving to push my cart away. Take your time, she said again. Grief and family drama don't move at 10 items or less speed. I laughed once, shaky. Thank you, I said. For what? She asked. For seeing more than what I put on the belt, I said. She tilted her head. Can't help it, she said. It's my curse and my gift. You'd think that would have been the end of it. Me getting a little nudge from the grocery clerk, then going home, calling my son and fixing everything in one teary phone call. Life doesn't work like that. I did go home. I did look at my phone. I did think about calling him. I didn't. Pride is a stubborn mule, so is hurt. Weeks went by. David and I texted about logistics, birthdays, grandkid events, weather, not talk about the house, or the fight, or his comment about sign things the way I tell you. Lee tried to play peacemaker, but even she got tired of carrying messages between two grown adults. You're both impossible, she said once, standing at my sink. It's like watching two cats argue over sunbeam. I'm older, I said primly. I win. She rolled her eyes. I went to Parker's every Tuesday. When I hadn't seen David there for a while, I asked Marla, against my better judgment. Your boy switched to the big store by the highway, she said. Says it's faster. I think it's less likely to run into his mama. I winced. He told you that? I asked. He told the self-checkout when it double scanned his chips, she said. I was close enough to hear. She gave me a look. Y'all are killing me, she muttered. I'm trying not to meddle, but you're macking it hard. Don't meddle, I said. I already got one child in my business. She grinned. You say that like you're not dying. For somebody to meddle just right, she said. I harumphed and moved on. But she wasn't wrong. The conflict that had been simmering finally boiled over on a day when there wasn't any soup on the stove. It was the day Parker's Market put a FOR sale sign out front. I pulled into the lot, same as always, and saw it. Big, red, accusatory. Property under contract. I sat in my car, hands on the steering wheel, feeling my heart race. Now, to someone who doesn't live in a small town, this might seem dramatic. It's just a store, you'd say. But to me, that little building was where I'd bumped carts with half my life, where I'd watched couples flirt and fight, where I'd seen babies go from car seats to pushing the little green carts on their own, where I'd measured my grief by how many times I had to stop in the cereal aisle and cry. It was also where Marla worked. Lord, I muttered, if they shut this place down, I'm gonna have to learn how to use those self-checkout machines. And that's where I draw the line. Inside, the air felt different, buzzier, thinner. Employees clustered near the customer service desk, talking low. I saw Marla at her lane, scan gun in hand, jaw tight. When she saw me, she forced a smile. Hey, Miss June, she said. We got a sale on denial today. Buy one, get one free. I walked up to her, leaving my cart for a minute. What's happening? I asked. She sighed. New owners, she said. Big corporation bought us. They're talking about turning half the store into some kinda express concept. Fewer lanes, more machines, less us. My stomach dropped. What about you? I asked. She shrugged. They offered us other positions, she said. Some of us anyway. Over at the big store, or in online order fulfillment. Fancy way of saying, we'll be running around grabbing groceries for folks too busy to grab them themselves. I pictured her in that big, bright store, wearing a headset, pushing a cart for strangers she'd never actually look in the eye. It made me sadder than it probably should have. You gonna take it? I asked. She looked around, then leaned in. I don't know, she whispered. This lane is my pew, my confessional, my theater, my office, my everything. I know every squeak of this belt. I know which board on the floor is gonna squeal. Know which couples are on the verge of divorce, and which teenagers are pregnant and too scared to tell their mamas. If I go over there, I'm just another barcode jockey. I smiled at barcode jockey in spite of myself. You know, I said slowly, I hear they pay more at the big store, benefits and such. She snorted. I also hear they don't give you time to breathe or think, she said. I ain't opposed to hard work. I built something here. Not money, but something. She gestured at the aisles. Stories, she said, connections. I know who lost a husband, and who lost a job, and who's cheating on their diet, and who's cheating on their taxes. I don't want to give that up for $1 more an hour. You make it sound like you're the town's librarian, I said. Of hearts, she said, smirking. Maybe. I put my hand on her arm. You ever think about using all that knowledge for something else? I asked. Social work, counseling, private investigating, she laughed. I barely passed algebra, she said. Nobody's given me a degree in human behavior. Besides, you think anybody wants to admit they got read like a grocery list by the girl with the name tag? I thought of myself, standing in her lane, getting my life interpreted between coupons. I might, I said quietly. She looked at me for a long moment. You know, she said, I've been wanting to tell you something about your son. The sign out front makes me think maybe I should do it now, while I still got this lane. I stiffened. I don't want to hear it, I lied. Yeah, you do, she said. She glanced at the register light. Nobody behind you, she said. We got a minute. Of course no one was behind me. The whole town was still in the parking lot, talking pictures of the sign, already posting on Facebook about our poor Parker S. She lowered her voice. You know your boy bought a cake here last week, she said. I frowned. David, I asked. He never buys cake. He's on that keto nonsense. He bought a plain white sheet cake from the bakery, she said. Had him right. I'm sorry I was an idiot on it in blue frosting. I blinked. What? I said. He came in all fidgety, she said. Picked it out himself. Stood there at the counter arguing with the decorator about cursive versus print. That it needed to be legible because he tends to stutter when he's nervous, and he wanted his message clear even if he choked on the words. I pictured my son at the bakery counter, big hands clutching a cake box. Who was the cake for? I asked, even though I knew. She raised an eyebrow. Who you think? She said. His ex-wife, the mayor, you. My throat tightened. He didn't bring me any cake, I said. She shrugged. I know, she said. That's why I'm telling you. He came through my lane with it. Asked me if I thought the message was too much. I told him I thought it was just enough. He paid. He walked out. 10 minutes later, I saw him sitting in his truck in the parking lot, head on the steering wheel. He sat there 45 minutes. Then he drove away. Cake still in the seat. I leaned on my cart. Did he go to his house? I asked. She nodded. Stopped in the lot across the street from yours, she said. I could see him from the window. He sat there another 20 minutes. He drove off. Came back an hour later. No cake in the truck. My eyes burned. He threw it away, I whispered. Maybe, she said. Or maybe he ate it in a parking lot like a sad raccoon. I didn't follow him to the dumpster. I laughed and sobbed at the same time. He wanted to apologize, she said gently. He chickened out. It happens. Pride, fear, shame. They all ride in the truck with you when you're driven towards someone you hurt. I stared at the conveyor belt. He never said nothing, I murmured. Of course he didn't, she said. He's a man raised by a man who didn't know how to say hard things, and a woman who knows how to slam a door with her words. He's not exactly had a masterclass in simple apologies. That's not fair, I said, stung. She held up her hands. I'm not judging, she said. I'm observant. Comes with the job. I felt my defensiveness deflate. Why you telling me this? I asked. That break-in, some kind of grocery clerk code. What happens in lane 4 stays in lane 4, she smiled. I keep people's secrets when keeping them keeps them safe, she said. I break them when breaking them might keep them from breaking themselves. He's not gonna tell you he bought you a cake, 'cause he thinks not following through makes it worse. You're not gonna know that he tried, so you're gonna keep thinking he doesn't care. That seems like a waste of a perfectly good baked good and a lot of pain. I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand. Did he say anything else? I asked. She squinted, thinking. He said, she replied, and I quote, she's never gonna see me as anything but the boy who messed up. Doesn't matter what I do. Pain flared in my chest. I don't see him like that, I protested. Not only that, she gave me a look. You keep a list, she said. You told me yourself once. He's given me gray hairs since he was 2. You say it with love, but lists are lists. He feels them. I hated that she was right. I also hated that she'd heard me say that. I'd been jocking with the cashier, I thought. But jokes have shadows. She rang up my groceries. Look, she said, I'm not saying you gotta call him today and say, Marla from Parker's told me you bought me a cake and chickened out. That'd mortify him. I'm just saying, maybe don't wait for him to figure out courage all by himself. You're the mama. You've been the braver one longer. I took my receipt. I'm tired of being the braver one, I admitted quietly. She nodded. I know, she said, but bravery doesn't always mean having the hard talk. Sometimes it means opening the door before the cake goes stale. I blinked. You and your metaphors, I said. Blame the bakery, she replied. I pushed my cart away, heart heavy, but something else under the heaviness, possibility. I didn't call David that day, but I also didn't throw away what she'd told me. I carried the picture of that cake around in my mind like a photograph. I'm sorry I was an idiot. Blue letters on white frosting. Farmer's Market of Feelings, right there in the bakery case. I thought about all the times I'd wanted to apologize to my own mama and couldn't get the words out. I thought about how it would have felt to know she saw my cake, even if she never tasted it. The next Sunday, I baked a cake. Not a fancy one. Yellow box mix, chocolate frosting, sprinkles because I had 'em. I put it on my best plate, covered it with my old Tupperware lid, and stared at it on my counter. Lee dropped by for coffee, as she sometimes does. She raised an eyebrow when she saw it. Who's that for? She asked. Secret boyfriend, I snorted. Please, I said, I'd need more frosting. She laughed. It's for your brother, I said. Her smile faded. Oh, she said, y'all talk. Not yet, I said. But I heard, I stopped. I couldn't say I heard from the grocery clerk. I couldn't betray Marla's confidence that much. I heard he's trying, I said instead, and I'd like to meet him halfway. She walked over, lifted the lid, sniffed. It smells like childhood, she said. I figured I'd start with a smell he remembers from before we complicated each other, I said. She hugged me. I'll take the kids out this afternoon, she said. Give y'all the house, if he comes. He'll come, I said, more confident than I felt. I sent David a text. Made too much cake. Come help, I wrote. No paperwork, just forks. 3 little dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. My heart hammered. Finally, he wrote back, I'll try to come by after 3. I'll try, I muttered, his favorite phrase. At 3:20, his truck pulled up. He came in through the kitchen door. He stopped when he saw the cake. I watched his face go through recognition, suspicion, and something like guilt. You made cake, he said. Observation skills still intact, I said. He shifted his weight. Lee told you, he asked. About what? I said. He looked away. Never mind, he muttered. We sat at the table. I cut us each a slice. We ate in silence for a minute. Then I said, I heard a rumor you like apologism with baked goods. His fork stopped halfway to his mouth. Color rose in his cheeks. I what? He stammered. I heard a rumor, I repeated, that you once bought a cake that said something along the lines of I'm sorry, I was an idiot, and that you didn't deliver it. He closed his eyes for a second. God, he said under his breath. I'm gonna kill Marla, I smiled faintly. So it's true, I said. He sighed. He set his fork down. I wanted to come over, he said. After that night, I knew I'd crossed a line. I knew I sounded like a jerk, like Daddy on his worst days. I drove to the store. I thought if I bring something physical, maybe I can get the words out. I ordered the cake. I stood in the parking lot. I couldn't move. Why? I asked gently. He rubbed his face. Because I was afraid you'd de-slam the door, he said. Or worse, that you'd let me in and accept the cake and still think of me as the son who cares more about money than his mama. Tears pricked my eyes. That's not how I see you, I said. It's how I feel you see me, he said. Every time we talk about this stuff. Like I'm the enemy. Like I'm trying to take from you instead of protect you. I swallowed. You said if you just sign things the way I tell you to, I reminded him. He winced. I know, he said. I'm sorry. I was frustrated, scared. Used to bossing people around at work and forgot you're not my employee. He looked up at me. I'm sorry I was an idiot, he said, voice thick. I smiled. You were, I said. So was I, he blinked. You, he asked. I kicked you out, I said. I told you to leave when you were trying, however poorly, to help. I let my fear speak for me. I let old wounds from Mama and Daddy and Earl bleed all over you. I acted like you were just a threat to my security, instead of my child who was terrified of losing me and Bane left with a mess. He shook his head. You were defending yourself, he said. And you were defending me, I said, badly. But still. We sat there, 2 stubborn people with crumbs on our plates, and a whole lot of history between us. You know what's funny, I said. What? He asked. If your daddy had done what he meant to do with the deed, we might never have had that fight, I said. He wrote in his journal he wanted to change it. He called the lawyer. He was gonna surprise me with the papers. He died before he could sign them. We've been fighting with a ghost as much as with each other. He stared at me. He wrote that, he asked. Yes, I said, in the journal. He also wrote that he hoped, after he was gone, you and I would learn how to talk without him in the middle, that we'd realize we're on the same side. His eyes filled. And here we've been, he said, teaching some poor grocery clerk our worst lines instead. We both laughed through our tears. Marla said you looked like a little boy buying that cake, I said. He groaned. She talks too much, he said. She listens too much, I corrected. Then she talks just enough. He wiped his face. She told me something else once, he said, a while back. Told me to stop talking to my mama like a project plan and start talking to her like the woman who taught me how to make grilled cheese. I barked out a laugh. She said that, I asked. She did, he said. I was complaining at her line about how you won't listen to reason. She looked me dead in the eye and said, maybe she's listening to something you don't hear. Try asking what she's scared of before you start telling her what to do. I shook my head, amazed and not. That girl's wasted behind a register, I muttered. We smiled at each other. Then his face grew serious. Mama, he said, I don't want your house. I raised an eyebrow. Could have fooled me, I said. He held up his hands. I know how it looked, he said, but I don't want your house. I want you to feel safe. I want to know that if something happens, you're not going to end up in a pile of bills and legal letters with nobody to help. I overcorrected. I tried to fix my fear with control. It backfired. I nodded slowly. And I don't want you to be my financial planner, I said. I want you to be my son. I want to be able to ask for help without feeling like I'm signing away my life. I overcorrected too. I tried to fix my fear with control. It backfired. He smiled sadly. We're the same, he said. Unfortunately, I replied. We both laughed. Can we start over, he asked. Not from scratch, that's impossible. But maybe from here, with cake. I looked at him. I thought of Marla standing at lane 4 watching our carts separately. I thought of the FOR sale sign. I thought of how many stories live in one grocery store, one house, one family, and how often we let them sour in the fridge instead of serving them up with some grace. Yes, I said finally. We can start from here. We clinked our forks like glasses. It wasn't a magical fix. We still had to sort through the actual paperwork. We still had to sit down with the lawyer again, this time together, this time both of us trying to listen more than we talked. But the tone shifted. The edge dulled. The next week, I went to Parker S. and found Marla in her lane, still there for now. How'd the cake go? She asked, without preamble. I grinned. He didn't throw this one away, I said. We ate it together, talked, cried, yelled a little. We're not fixed, but we're less broken. Her shoulders dropped like she'd been holding something tight. Good, she said simply. Thank you, I said. For what? She asked. For breaking your own rule and telling me about that sad cake in the parking lot, I said. For knowing when to keep a secret and when to hand it back to the person it belonged to. She shrugged, a little embarrassed. Somebody's gotta balance your family ledger, she said. Y'all got a lot of love and a lot of stubborn. Good problem to have, I guess. I watched her ring up a customer behind me, an older man buying a single frozen dinner and a half-size loaf of bread. You ever think about doing more with this gift? I asked again. You see people, really see 'em. That's not nothing. She smiled. I've been thinking, she said. If this place really does change hands, I might not go with it. Might take my story somewhere they can do more than ring up points. Maybe volunteer at the senior center. Maybe do peer support at that women's shelter. I don't know yet. But I'm starting to believe watching people isn't a waste of time. It never was, I said softly. She winked. Don't tell anybody I got a heart, she said. I got a reputation to maintain. A few months later, Parker's closed for renovations. The sign out front promised a fresh, modern grocery experience. I rolled my eyes so hard I almost saw my brain. They reopened with fewer lanes and more machines, just like Marla said. She didn't stay. When I went in for the grand reopening, I saw her picture on the community board with a little flyer. Peer support group Tuesday evenings, community center, for women dealing with grief, family stress, and big emotions. Facilitated by Marla. No judgments, just space. I smiled. Of course she'd find a way. Of course the girl who'd listened to a whole town between beeping scanners would someday pull up some chairs in a quieter room and say, okay, y'all, what's really going on? I went to the first meeting. Walked into the community center with my heart pounding, like I was about to take a test. There were 8 of us. A widow, a young mama, an older woman with a worn Bible, a lady I recognized from church who always seems put together, and confessed within 5 minutes she was not. Marla sat in a circle of plastic chairs, no register between us now. Hey, Miss June, she said. Glad you came. Figured I owe you at least 1 attendance for all the free therapy in aisle 4, I said. She laughed. You paid, she said. In patience and coupons. We sat. We talked. We cried. We learned. I listened to women tell stories of sons who'd moved away and daughters who'd stopped calling, and husbands who snored and then didn't anymore. I told mine, too, in pieces. About Earl. About his journal. About David. About the cake. About the girl at the grocery store who knew more about my family's emotional inventory than any of our relatives did. We weren't trying to fix each other. We were just laying our carts out where everyone could see. At the end of the night, as we folded our chairs, I went up to Marla. You know, I said, when I first saw you all those years ago, I thought you were just the grocery clerk bagging my chicken and my grief. She smirked. And now? she asked. Now I know you're the one who saw the cracks before I did, I said. The one who knew when my cart said stubborn, and when it said scared. The one who knew my son wanted to be a better man than he knew how to be. She shrugged, but her eyes were shiny. I just watch, she said. God does the rest. I squeezed her hand. Don't sell yourself short, I said. You may not have a degree on your wall, but you got a PhD in checkout line humanity. She laughed. I'll put that on my resume, she said. My son still goes to the big grocery store most of the time. Old habits, convenience. But every now and then, I'll catch him in our little community center parking lot on Tuesday nights. He doesn't come in. Not yet. He just sits in his truck watching, like he's remembering the cake he never delivered and trying to decide if he's got the courage to walk into a room full of women talking about their hearts. One night, I walked out to find him leaning against his truck, arms crossed, playing it cool. Lost? I asked. Just passing by, he said. I raised an eyebrow. Street doesn't go anywhere else, I pointed out. He grinned, caught. I heard you've been common here, he said. Support group. With the grocery lady. Peer support, I corrected. And the grocery lady has a name. He nodded. Marla, he said. I know. I owe her an apology too, probably. For all the times I used her lane as a vent. She'd take it, I said, with store brand tissues and a coupon for redemption. He laughed. We stood there looking at each other. You want some cake? I asked. He blinked. Cake, he said. I made one, I said. It's in the backseat. I bring one sometimes for after group. Sugar helps with honesty. He shook his head, smiling. You and your cakes, he said. Me and your cakes, I corrected. You started it. We ate it off paper plates on the tailgate. Around us, the town went on, oblivious. People drove by, going home from work. The grocery store, now shiny and modern, glowed in the distance. Inside, self-checkout machines beeped at strangers. At our plastic table in the parking lot, my son and I passed forks and stories instead. 200, 300 word closure. Emotional wrap-up, life lesson, house family metaphor. When I think about my life now, I don't just picture my house. I picture a grocery store. Not the new one with the cold lights and the machines that talk at you. The old one. The one with the squeaky floor and the sticky carts and the clerk on lane 4 who knew when a cart full of frozen dinners meant I'm too tired to cook. And when it meant I'm too lonely to eat at the table. My family used to think our story lived between our 4 walls. We'd fight in our kitchen, make up in our living room, pretend everything was fine by the time we pushed a buggy down aisle 5. But the truth is, all the while, there was someone watching us in little snapshots, what we bought, what we stopped buying, who came in together, who stopped common at all. She saw the empty spaces we tried to fill with buy one, get one. She saw the tension we tried to smooth over with cake. She saw the love under all that fear and pride. And when the time was right, she slid one small piece of information across the counter that changed everything. That's what families are like in the end. A house full of rooms you think are private, and a few unexpected windows where someone from the outside catches a glimpse of the mess and the beauty you've gotten used to. Sometimes you need that outside set of eyes. Someone a little removed, a little less tangled to say, I see you. I see him. You're both hurting. Maybe you're more on the same side than you realize. It doesn't have to be a therapist in an office. Sometimes it's a clerk with a scanner. Sometimes it's a neighbor on a porch. Sometimes it's the lady behind you in line who hears your voice crack and hands you her coupon and a smile. The older I get, the more I believe this. We're all pushing our carts through the same aisles, thinking our list is unique. But the clerk, the one who really pays attention, knows how much overlap there is. We're all buying bread and milk and forgiveness over and over. And if we're lucky, we get a Marla. Someone who rings us up, looks us in the eye, and gently reminds us that even when our carts look different, we're all just trying to feed the same hungry hearts.